Hello, hello. Happy Saturday, and I suppose happy 4th of July to anybody who cares. I can't say I'm particularly enthused this year, but hello. How's everybody doing? So, as promised, I have successfully made a habit of at least 2 weeks of trying to continue working on Godot and doing some learning, mostly. It's a bit aspirational to believe that anything that is being poked at and prodded at the moment is even remotely useful in any kind of long-term sense, but we're learning. So last week when we worked on this, we got a camera working based on a tutorial, and then we were struggling to get it to work in the not tutorial project. I, after the fact, got some help from a friend who pointed me in the direction of what to solve it. And the issue at hand was that I did not actually have the player script connected to the actual player object, or scene, I suppose is the term they use in this case. The scene. So that was essentially all of the issue. It just wasn't using the script. And so I did get that fixed. So now we have something that is also still not working because I was trying to do other experiments, and now I've made a mess of everything. What the hell state is this in now? I've left it for a goddamn week. Shoot, man. Oh, boy. So the crux of the issue. So what I then also did, something else I did, was I set up a water shader to have water. Hooray. Also based on a tutorial, obviously. And it sort of helped point me to one of the issues of trying to do this, the sort of ad hoc tutorial way that I was doing. So I made the water shader out of a tutorial. I then had another tutorial by somebody else who pointed to this water tutorial, and then was like, hey, here's a way to get like something to float on the water. So there's a floating tutorial. And in attempting to do the floating tutorial, things went squiffy. And honestly, this is really pointing me to the fact that I should have been less lazy and done the due diligence of getting this into version control, because it is not in version control. Like, hey, Seaweaver. But I didn't care that much about the version control just because of the fact that, like, I'm not using anything that is meaningfully permanent. So, like, whatever. Okay, so this is pieces of movement that are not really enabled. So we're going to delete that. The camera should all be fine. I think it was this that was causing issues. That's no problem, Seaweaver. That's totally fine. Okay, so if I get rid of that, yes. Okay, so now this works. So another thing I did was I changed the way the camera was hooked up, in most part to try it out and prove that it's a thing that I could do. Because the tutorial for the camera keeps you centered, keeps the parent object, the player character, quote unquote, our log, our box here, in the center, so that if you go up or down, it keeps it centered, and like the camera itself is moving. Think of most cameras you're familiar with, like third-person platformer cameras. But that's not really... I mean, that's understandable, Seaweaver. I'm just making shit up. But whenever this camera ends up... Like, what this camera will be doing eventually is not centering the character. It is sort of more looking out on the horizon, because... Hey, Cobalts. The goal is not to center this. Imagine the log is a boat. We don't need to stare at the boat. We need to be staring away from the boat where we can shoot. So I have sort of at least proven to myself that that's a thing that I can do and understand how to accomplish. The sensitivity's shit, but it doesn't matter. I'm still learning again. Like, that's what we're doing here. So my goal today is to get this thing moving. We want the player object to move. Yeah, thanks. Happy 4th of July to anybody who cares. The world has been around for 250 years. It's incredible. What a turn of events. So the goal is to get our player to move. And I think I'm going to pivot a little bit in how I am trying to learn this. We're going to be doing some documentation reading and some experimentation this time, because I was able to get some things put together via tutorials, like a water shader, although it is not doing the thing that it should be doing, which was it was moving the vertexes as well. It had bigger waves. I don't know why it's not doing that at this point, but... Oh, maybe it's the height scale. Oh, and then probably the time. It doesn't matter. So this points to what I'm talking about, actually. So I followed a tutorial for the water plane, and then I was trying to follow a tutorial for floating on the water plane. The problem is that by just following those tutorials, everything that was constructed was extremely brittle, because I found that the second tutorial about buoyancy was using some different variable names, so I had to sort of go back and map the variable names and change them to understand what they were talking about, and in so doing, things don't end up with the results that I expect. Not to mention, the tutorials are like even just a few months old, and all of a sudden, some of the stuff is no longer the same because the engine's been updated. So, like, I had to make some changes. Fortunately, the engine did actually, Godot explained, like, hey, this method is deprecated, use this instead. That will allow you minimal code changes to make it happen. So, like, but these things change, right? It makes it very difficult to meaningfully make strong headway when I don't really, like, I don't like that the tutorials do not sort of explain the underlying premises or reasonings behind doing this or doing that. So for instance, right, the where's the, so I was working on the shader, right? So hey Kappa, the shader, something that I, you know, just have never worked on at all. And they're doing a bunch of stuff. Like they've got like these Vec 3s, we got Vec 2s, we got sampler 2Ds, and it's like they don't explain what those are. I know what a float is. Like these are types of variables, but like I don't know what those are. I don't know why we chose to do that. Here's a Vec 4. I think there's a Vec 2 at some point. Like I assume that those are vectors. Like vector 2, vector 3, vector 4. Here's the Vec 2. Like, so like, is this a two-dimensional vector? So it would have just like a line, and this is a three-dimensional vector. So it's like got 3 points to it. I don't know. They didn't explain it, and that's not helpful. So we are going to try to use our limited knowledge to start reading documentation, figuring out how to maybe make this move, and then we're just going to see what we can accomplish. So this is our script on our player body, which is a rigid body 3D, so it has physics. All this stuff happens in like the physics process. So, yeah, I was working on the movement and stuff. So we're gonna kill this. We're not gonna worry about it. We're gonna do this simple. We're gonna start from the baseline, understand what something does, and then we'll go from there. We can leave that, I suppose. So, can we look at rigid body 3D? Because we're gonna look for the things that we can do to this. So we've got properties, we've got methods. Yeah, so we've got like add central forces, or add constant central force, add constant force, add constant torque, apply central force, but presumably not constant, apply central impulse. So these are the things that we have at our disposal to do. Also, let's just read about it. Okay, rigid body 3D implements full 3D physics. It cannot be controlled directly. Instead, you must apply forces to it, gravity, impulses, etc., and the physics simulation will calculate the resulting movement, rotation, react collisions, and affect other physics bodies in its path. The body's behavior can be adjusted via lock rotation, freeze, and freeze mode. By changing various properties of the object, such as mass, you can control how the physics simulation acts on it. Okay, what are these? Lock rotation. If true, the body cannot rotate. Gravity and forces only apply linear movement. Is that something? Yes. That is something that we would want. Specifically in a particular direction? Is this all? Set lock rotation enable. Is this just? It's just like the one. So we don't want that. Whoops. Because we needed to rotate in the, I don't know what the hell direction they call it. Like, I guess the Y. We need to rotate, you know, laterally. But we don't really want it to roll, you know, roll. We want it, we want yaw. We don't want roll. But I don't know if locking can do that. Okay. Freeze. What is freeze? Set freeze enabled. If true, the body is frozen. Gravity and forces are not applied anymore. See freeze mode to set the body's behavior when frozen. For a body that is always frozen, use static body 3D or animatable body 3D instead. Freeze mode. The body's freeze mode determines the body's behavior when freeze is true. For a body that is always... Yeah. I don't know what this is saying. Vector 3, inertia. Can I look up a vector 3? A 3D vector using floating point coordinate. 3-element structure. Okay, that is what I had anticipated. It can be used to represent 3D coordinates or any other triplet of numeric values. Uses floating point coordinates. By default, these floating point values use 32-point bit precision, unlike float, which is always 64-bit. Double precision is needed. Compile the engine with the option precision equals double. See vector 3i for its integer counterpart. In a Boolean context, a vector 3 will evaluate to false if it's equal to vector 3000. Otherwise, a vector 3 will always evaluate to true. Okay, sure. It's fine. Okay, well, that explains the vectors. I was generally correct. A rigid body will always maintain its shape and size, even when forces are applied to it. It is useful for objects that can be interacted with in an environment, such as a tree that can be knocked over or a stack of crates that can be pushed around. You need to directly affect the body. Prefer integrate forces, as it allows you to directly access the physics state. If you need to override the default physics behavior, you can write a custom force integration function. See custom integrator. Note, changing the 3D transform or linear velocity of a rigid body 3D very often may lead to some unpredictable behaviors. This also happens when a rigid body 3D is the descendant of a constantly moving node like another rigid body, as that will cause its global transform to be set whenever its ancestor moves. Integrate forces. Called during physics processing, allowing you to read and safely modify the simulation state for the object. By default, it is called before the standard force integration, but the custom integrator property allows you to disable the standard force integration and do fully custom force integration for a body. Integrate forces. State, physics, direct body state 3D. Okay, actually, what do we have here? Physics introduction online tutorial. What does this say? Why have you... That is an insane thing to have copied. Bruh. Bruh. Copy the link, please. Oh, whatever. Okay, so here's the physics introduction. Know when two objects in the game intersect or come into contact. This is known as collision detection, of course. Collision objects. Sure, whatever. Physics material. Code examples. Using a rigid body. Do you have 3D, my dude? Why is it all 2D? Hello? Why is it only 2D that it's telling me about? Can I please have 3D? 3D. 3D. Okay, you are not any more helpful. I mean, presumably most of them are similar. Setting collision mask values. Sure, that makes sense. That you can do with the GUI. Rigid body. Okay, let's look at this very basic setup here. One of the benefits of using a rigid body is that a lot of behavior can be had for free without writing any code. For example, if you're making an Angry Bird style game with falling blocks, you would only need to create rigid body 2Ds and adjust their properties. Stacking, falling, and bouncing would automatically be calculated by the physics engine. However, if you do wish to have control over the body, you should take care. Altering the position, linear velocity, or other physics properties of a rigid body can result in unexpected behavior. If you need to alter any of the physics-related properties, you should use the integrate forces callback instead of physics process. In this callback, you have access to the body's physics direct body state, which allows for safely changing properties and synchronizing them with the physics engine. Here's the code for an asteroids-style spaceship, which is actually extremely close to what we want. It's actually really helpful. So extends rigid body. We got variable thrust is a 2D vector. 0, -250. Presumably is like 4 words. And in our case, we would use a vector 3 and have 3 values of 0, 0, some number. Because I believe negative some number. Because z is usually the forward. Or negative z is forward, is my understanding. And then we would need a torque value. So then we use the function integrate forces. I guess state for like its current state. And so then we have the if input is action pressed UI up. State apply forces thrust dot rotated. Rotation. Okay, so the thrust dot rotated. I'm just gonna copy this actually. Because this is actually really close to what we need. I can't believe I did so much searching and they literally just have the sample. Okay. But then this is actually before the physics process. I don't think it actually matters. It's going to be run prior to the physics regardless. And then we need these values. So then these would be the movement variables, which I actually have multiples of because I was trying to do this several times. Okay. And another one of those things that like I'm not clear on why the tutorials use this at export. At export, what is the purpose of this? Mark the following property as exported, editable in the inspector doc and saved to disk. To control the type of the exported property, use the type int notation. Export variable strings, built-in types, enums, resources, nodes. Yeah, I mean, it all goes that way. Custom resources and nodes should be registered as global classes using class name, since the inspector currently only supports global classes. Node export is only supported in node-derived classes, which it is. Export category. Okay, sure. I don't know still quite why that is helpful. And so this would need to be a vector 3. And it'd be 0, -250. Yeah, so x, y, z, float. Negative z, my understanding is forward. Yeah, so these are vector 2s, because these are just we're splitting X and Y. That makes sense. I don't need this. This was part of the floating, and I think was what was causing my issues. State dot apply forces. What are we complaining about? Just allows you to change values on the fly. If you click on the node, the script is on. Okay. So if I'm like in a scene and I select the node, it would help if I were to save this script. Then, like, it shows up over here somewhere. So these are part of, like, so export group. So would it be these? Would these be the groups? I don't... Or is it somewhere else? I mean, it is attached to that. Edit this. Process. No, that's not it. That's where it should be. So I should have... This is the right one. Oh! Okay. Because this is having issues. So what if I... will it show up if I... What was it? Control K? To comment? Oh, now it made that way less happy. Oh, I grabbed too much. If I like Control K, is this valid now? So will it... Yes. I see. I see. Okay. Thank you. That's extremely helpful. Okay, so then what are you complaining about? Too few arguments for rotated call. Expected at least 2, but received 1. That makes sense because I changed this to a vector 3 instead of a vector 1 or vector 2. And so we want an axis and an angle. Turns the result of rotating this vector around a given axis by angle. The axis must be a normalized vector. See also degree to radians. Rotation. Rotation. Yeah, that certainly makes sense. Also, hello. I believe it's Kiri. Welcome. Thanks for coming by. Okay, so we have a rotation and then an axis. Is axis also a property? Hold on. Go back. Okay. So we want rotation of this node. Okay, so we would want the vector 3.y. Oh, you're learning the 2D? Nice. How am I doing? I am doing well enough, but this is in fact quite overwhelming. Mostly because I was hoping there would not be so much code because I don't like coding. But here we are, doing what I must, I suppose. So is this what we want? Like vector3.y, comma, rotation? Vector, or like, this, what would this be? This would be like state.y, comma, rotation? No. Should be float, but is vector3. Okay. Hold on. Okay. So this should be rotation, comma, something. Rotation, is this like rotation dot what? Does that work? Nope. Well, maybe. What is just, if I just give you a float? Argument 1 should be, but is a float. Okay, so rotation and a number. That is what I'm hoping, honestly. And it's... I have had to do some degree of coding, like, in the past for my day job, but, like, not very much, and I avoid it whenever possible. It's just, like, now I actually have to understand stuff. And it's daunting to come in with so little, like, starting information. Because I was mentioning earlier how, so last week I started this whole endeavor, and I started by following a handful of tutorials online on YouTube to get some things made and done, which I did. I got a water shader, which I experimented with, but then subsequently broke to some extent. And then I got, like, the camera portion of this script. So, like, I got a functioning camera. The issue with having done it that way was that I just didn't... My complaint with tutorials on YouTube is that they never actually explain why things are happening. They just give you the quickest, like, set of information possible to give you the result that you seem to be asking for, which I do not like as a style of tutorials, which is why the handful of other tutorials that I have on my YouTube channel are way too long, because I spend way too much time talking about, like, why something is done this way or that way, because, like, that's the most important information. And so I did some stuff last week, but it's like none of it was meaningfully long-lasting information that helped me be like, oh, now I can extrapolate that knowledge and do something elsewhere. Like, they did not even explaining why something is like a vector 2 or a vector 3 anywhere, like in the shaders, or like why, like, I hate that that doesn't get explained. It drives me nuts. And so we're doing the really, really boring part this week of just actually trying to look at the documentation and then understand what something needs to be to do the thing that we're trying to accomplish, because it just has to be like, I need to understand why things work the way they work, else I'm never going to be able to put anything meaningful together. So what does the second number need to be? Because this is rotation, and the second one should be angle. Is this... Can I... What... axis? And... Okay, so... We need a property of, like... much as you hate AI, you're using it as a tutor to explain all the concepts that you don't get. Yeah, that's fair. That's one of those, like, if you have a, like, I also am not much of a fan of AI, but one of the things that I find most frustrating about the entire AI endeavor is because a huge portion of the problems with AI is the abusive use from the, like, corporate environment. There is a parallel universe where the useful aspects of LLMs and AI was rolled out in a, like, agreeable way that we would actually have some interesting tools to use. And, like, there are meaningful things that come out of LLMs. Like, rewording documentation is actually one of the uses of LLMs. Like, the thing that LLMs do is give you humans, like, speech. So, like, trying to get explanations on documentations is a reasonable use of it. And it's just, it's so frustrating because you can't even celebrate the actual technical advancements that are possible because of how abusively it's being rolled out by all of the corporations. Like, you're forced to use it. They've forced it into all of your tools and your software, and, like, your job, you have to use it, or else you're, like, gonna get laid off. And it was never an opt-in, and, like, they stole all of your shit to do it. Like, all of this is just, also they've increased the price of every technological, like, item because they're just trying to build so much compute that nobody needs. It's just like, you guys are maniacs and evil, and you're just so full of shit. We could have had nice things. There are interesting things that come out of LLMs, natural language processing in general, and they just have made it do everything that it's bad at, and they've just ruined everything, and it's so frustrating. So the use of explaining complicated documentation, I think, is a very reasonable use of AI. Like, that's a thing that it can do. Yes, it's like 2%. And it's so well, God, you have set off my trap card, I'm afraid. Like, we're not getting anything done because I'm just gonna yell about this for an hour. I watch a lot of, like, anti-AI content in the sense of, like, keeping track of what's happening in, like, the broad economics setup. Ed Zitron is somebody that I see a lot and watch a lot, and it's just, like, talking about how there's no need for any of this compute because it's like it's all an artificial demand. It's like nobody actually wants that much compute, but yet the companies, as he puts forward as an explanation, which I think is entirely reasonable, is that the tech industry, which I am irritatingly a part of for my day job, the tech industry has run out of the, like, hyperscaler ideas to simply increase revenue to infinity. They ran out of ideas. They had the sick-ass smartphones, which was, like, sick, infinite money. Then they had the apps on the smartphones, super great, infinite money. They had the cloud sort of software as a service, right? Good old SaaS that made everything worse, but also extracted a shit ton of money from people. And, like, they kind of ran out of ideas after that, and so they need something to be the next giant idea. They tried crypto, they tried NFTs, and now they're trying AI. Like, that's why it's the way it is, and so they need it to work. So they are putting trillions of dollars into it. Maybe they haven't hit $1 trillion yet, but they're like really close to hitting $1 trillion of money just put into CapEx to like make compute. That's just, it's never going to materialize. People just don't need that much of the compute. Like, I am hopeful, like every time I get information from like Ed Zitron and the various like AI haters that I watch, which I am gladly will include myself amongst. I am hopeful because the bubble, it do be getting to the edge. A huge new one is that apparently Meta, there are some internal communications that Meta is going to start selling its compute, which would start to destroy a lot of the small data center constructing companies, because it's like the assumption is that, wow, everybody needs more compute, and Meta is one of the big people who, of course, they need all the compute they could possibly get. They're building giant data centers to get more compute. They need this compute because there's so much demand, of course. But if they start selling because they don't have a use for their own compute, then that means there is no demand. Nobody wants this shit, and it's simply a farce to think that there needed to be hundreds of billions of dollars of these data centers built. And I say built as in, it needs to be made clear that, like, they have not been built yet. Like, they're just promised to be built in the future. Yeah, God, there's so many layers of like yelling at the sky about AI, because like we haven't even hit on the whole like slop aspect of the actual harm the slop does to people. Like, it's that drive towards convenience. It hit just the right target, but not only the target, it hit it just the right time, because we're also just in this circumstance of like, so many people are lonely. Like, we have a loneliness epidemic for literally everybody. And it's because, well, smartphones and social media, largely. But that's for another digression of yelling at the sky. Old man yells at clouds, you know. Like, that has driven people to be lonely. And so you give, like, the opportunity to talk to the, you know, feelings assuager bot 9000, and of course people are like going to get themselves into freaking AI psychosis by talking to the freaking bullshit bot. Yeah, like, and you've been hearing about data centers being built, but like if you haven't watched anything from Ed Zitron, I would highly encourage you do, because he tracks the money a lot. Like, he goes down the sort of the financial side of like following the money to find out like what's going on in the industry for real. And it's like, there's not actually that much evidence of like these these mega data centers, the like gigawatt stuff, like ever actually coming online so far. And it's interesting because it's like more NVIDIA chips are being sold in a quarter than can be installed into data centers in a quarter. So like, it's a physical impossibility for data center installation to be like on pace with sales. Let me add Zitron. I believe it is, yeah, it's Ed Zitron. And Zitron. Oop, Ed Zitron. But he's got a lot of really interesting information and stuff about the AI space and what's happening, and like, do the financials make sense? They don't. Like, it's really interesting. He gets a lot of inside information also because of the amount of time that he's been doing this reporting in the AI space. So he gets a lot of like internal folks sort of like leaking him the occasional information. It's really, he's kind of like the dose of sanity, especially after I have to deal with like my stupid ass quarterly meetings from work where they're like deep throating AI just as a concept, and I'm losing my goddamn mind at work. Then I gotta listen to Ed, and I'm like, oh, everyone is not an idiot. Oh, thank God. All right. Okay. Rant over. Everybody still keeps hassling me about the fact that I need to make a rant redeem so that I could do something, put something on screen when I start ranting about shit, but I still haven't. Every time I do a rant on something, I am reminded that that's a thing that I should do, and I still haven't. Okay. So what we are currently doing, what I am looking for. So we came back here, we looked at rotated. We know that we need an axis, and we know that we need an angle in radians. Return the result of rotating this vector around a given axis by angle in radians. The axis must be a normalized vector. See also global scope degree to rad. So apply force, thrust dot rotated, rotation. How am I supposed to get that? What? Because this needs to be rotation of this node, Euler angles in radians and in parent space relative to the parent node. Values obtained from basis is rotation. Okay, so we're applying the force. So state dot apply force. Thrust dot rotated. The rotation. And then also we would need the angle of said rotation. So this, one would think that this is a property on this in the same way that we can get this via rotation. Property, node 3D dot rotation. We would think that it would be also rotation degrees. Probably. This property is edited in degrees in the inspector. If you want to use degrees in a script, use rotation degrees. Rotation degrees. Valid argument. Argument 2 should be float, but is vector 3. Rotation degrees dot to red. Rotation degrees. Rotation order. Radians. Global scope dot Degree to radiant. Okay. So can we do that? At global scope. What does that mean? Global scope. Degree to rad. Oh, wait. Hold. Function. Degree to rad. But it keeps coming back at effector. What do they want from me? What am I trying to make? Well, right now, I'm so early on in things that honestly, I'm just trying to understand how to make things move. So, like, generally speaking, the aspirations are to make something like the old, I don't know, 2008 game of Warship Gunner 2, if you remember that game. I don't know if you do. It's a good game. Warship Gunner 2. This sort of thing. Boat, arcade, shooter, third-person, naval thing. Lots of customization. Cannons, ships, aircraft carriers, destroyers, cruisers, battleships, etc. But, like, that's down the line. We'll get to that at some point. Right now, I'm just trying to make a box move. There is another game on Steam that has more recently been made that was also clearly heavily inspired by it. I think it's Waves of Steel, I think is the name on Steam. This was a PS2 game. Waves of Steel is a slightly, well, a much more recent game on Steam that is also of sort of similar vibe. So it has been sort of revisited to some extent, but not very much. It's like that's the one. I like that sort of like naval. Why not use velocity or just rotation? So that is because this is a rigid body. So from my understanding, if this were like a character body 3D, it's much easier to do something like that. But because I want it to eventually be like a floating object that can run into things and like interact in a meaningful way with like other ships, right? Like I need to deal with collisions. I need to make it a rigid body. And by being a rigid body, they mention about how like it cannot be controlled directly and instead you must apply forces to it. And so in order to apply forces to it, we have to go through this whole thing of using the integrate forces call. And within the integrate forces call, the weirdness of it that I kind of observed from some of the like tutorials and stuff is that it seems like apply forces is universal, like it's at world scale. So like if you say apply forces, you know, in Y direction, it's like that direction and doesn't care what direction your object is pointing. So if you want it to be going forward, you have to do this whole weird like rotated thing to identify what direction your guy is pointing. And so it's this, it's so much more complicated, but I think in the end it's going to be necessary for me to be able to like readily interact with the world and be a floating object instead of well, and what's annoying is that this was like very straightforward in the documentation, and it's a bummer that it's for 2D. Because, like, this is exactly the kind of movement that I am in need of. Like, this is exactly what I need. But I need this translated from 2D to 3D. Because, like, rotated isn't just a single argument in 3D. It's now these two arguments. And I'm like, well, what is the other one? But everything about the physics here is 2D and not nearly as helpful. Let me see here. Rigid body 3D physics. Well, there's documentation on rigid body 3D. The frustrating thing is I got to this because it's the physics introduction. And so it's like, okay, great. Thanks for the physics introduction. But all of the physics introduction is 2D. Like, they just didn't do 3D for the physics introduction. And it's like, this is exactly the example code that I'm in need of, except you did it in 2D, and you didn't do it in 3D. And I need it in 3D. That's so not helpful. And so if we go to rigid body 3D, we have properties of, so I mean, we pulled up rotation. Need to figure out rotation, but in 3D. Yes, I think so. There's lock rotation. Constant torque, body's moment of inertia. Lock rotation. Add constant central force. Constant torque. Also, we're going to hear a lot of fireworks. Because that's what kind of day it is. Hello, Carl Snorkel. It was. The problem is, the main thing is that, so the 2D example of this kind of movement is using the thrust.rotated method and then using the rotation, which is great. But once this is now a body 3D, rotated is needing both an axis, which we do have rotation as far as I can tell. It's allowing rotation, but then we need this angle return, and like I'm unclear of what this angle is supposed to be. Returns the result of rotating this vector around a given axis by angle. And so does this, is this the current state, or does this need to be the desired state? So I think it needs to be the current state, because this is the UI is action press UI up, which is like move forward. So we want to be applying the force. Thrust dot rotated Thrust is indeed... Yes, it is a vector 3. I changed it to a vector 3 here. But I made it a vector 3. It was not... They had it as a vector 2. My assumption was that it needed to be a vector 3. And I believe it was... If it was just a 2... I think they didn't... I think this was not liked. So I think when... Yes, because now that... Yes, I remember how we got here, which is, this is useful information. This is learning. This is how we learn. Why we need to fix this, because the rotation of our object, because we are a rigid body 3D, is a vector 3. So like it is a vector 3 here, which is not what this expects when it's a vector 2. It is, however, what it expects when it is a vector 3. And so we make this a vector 3, and now this is what it expects here. However, now it adds comma angle as a float. Well, interesting point. So if we actually, if we do make this a vector 2, and then we say this is just the rotation dot y, I think. Aha! No, you might be right. We might be able to just use a vector 2. We don't necessarily need all of them, as long as we've selected the correct rotation. This is, at the very least, worth experimenting with, because that's the whole point of learning. And so then, else state dot apply force. So I don't know why they don't do... No, I guess this would be a proper place for an else. So if it's pressed, then we apply force. If it's not pressed, what force are we applying here? I don't necessarily need... I don't know. The short answer, Kiri, is you might be right, but I'm not sure. Because ultimately, we do only need to apply a force in a single direction. And so if this is still going to get us the right direction by utilizing this, and we don't need it to be a complicated direction. Like, I just want it to always be a simple, straightforward, try to move forward, in my case. Of, like, a ship on water, right? It's just like, just move forward. Just whack, whack, whack. Like, that's all we want. I don't need it to be doing weird stuff. Rotation direction plus equals 1. So then we're... State apply torque, rotation direction times torque. Basic apply torque. So your rotation direction... I'm surprised that it's fine with this. What axis is this around? exactly. I'm just going to run it. Like, I don't... No. Not a fan. Okay, so here we cannot convert argument 1 from vector 2 to vector 3. How about now? What about that, huh? No. Invalid type and function apply torque. Jolt physics direct body state 3D cannot convert argument 1 from int to vector 3. Okay. Okay, so we do need to fix this direction at least. Rotation direction. Where did you... Variable rotation direction. Okay, so we're just making that shit up right here. And so now that we're applying torque, we need a vector 3. Applies a rotational force without affecting position of force, is time dependent and meant to be applied every physics update. Inverse inertia is required for this to work. To have inverse inertia, an active collision shape must be a child of the node. Okay. Or you can manually set inverse inertia. I think I did do that. Yes, there is a collision on the player. Okay. So this needs to be variable rotation direction equals how do we typecast? Oh, hold on. I think I see what I might need. Vector 3.0. No? Does this need to be a capital V? Aha. Aha. Vector 3.0. Because I see up here that we're like vector 2.0. So this would then be rotation direction dot. No. What did it mean for the rotation direction? Okay, so rotation direction is really just deciding if it should be left or right. It's +1 for right. It's -1 for left, which is positive or negative torque. Like, that's how physics works. You know, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. Positive, negative torque. Which makes sense. So what we actually need to do is determine... We can use that same thing. This does not need to be a vector 3. Rotation direction equals 0. That's fine. It's applying torque. We need to give an actual... No, it needs to be vector 3. Which, if we're doing... So what, this should be vector 3. It's just like 0, comma, rotational direction dot times torque, comma, 0. Can I parentheses? No? Do I need this at all? Will you just read as a vector 3 because I did it that way? I just give you the array? Damn, why is this music so damn quiet? I can't hear jack shit. I guess that's what I get for playing mostly background music. Sometimes it's quiet. Okay. Right, so this gives us a... Let's run it. Damn it. Expected 1 argument. Okay, so if we make rotation direction equal to vector 3 dot 0, and then we make this rotation direction dot y and dot y, then so rotation direction here. Does that work, or is it still going to complain? Oh my god, we're in the game. Game. Oh my god. Hold on. Okay. Camera's working. Hold on. Before I need to add further objects, I'm realizing, because I actually can't tell. Hold on. I can't tell if anything is happening. I need, like... Alternate... I could add a texture to the surface. Or I could just... shit, what is it? Mesh instance? 3D. Okay, hold on. Okay. Let's give you just a regular ass sphere. Can I duplicate? I can. We'll make you... How do I switch you? We'll give you a box, and we'll move you over here. Okay. All right. I don't have any grid textures immediately handy, so we're just going to use some circles and cubes. Okay, camera works. Moment of truth. What happens if I press forward? Jack shit. Left, right. Jack shit. Damn it. Nothing happens. The question is... Yeah. So, let's see here. Print. Can I get, like, thrust dot... no, just, like, rotation. I just get, like, give me the rotation. And then give me the... rotation direction. Let's just see if anything is being done in a meaningful sense. Notably, no numbers are changing. So one thing that jumps to mind is that, like, maybe those inputs are no good. I had actually put in a steer left, steer right, increase throttle. So what if I, instead of doing like UI up, use increase throttle, steer right, steer, no, left. If I use those, wah! It didn't like that. It's gonna crash the thing. Hold on, it didn't like that. Cannot convert argument 1 from vector 2 to vector 3. Invalid type in function apply force in base. Okay, so it is in fact the case that this has to be the whole shebang. Yeah, so this needs to be vector 3. So now we've got to get thrust, dot rotated, rotation. What is the number that is supposed to go here? What is this property? Also, notably, despite these now being, I don't freaking know, man. Just put a number there. I don't give a shit right now. Like, despite what you were just giving me different numbers, and now you are no longer giving me different numbers. Why have you done this to me? Bro, it worked a second ago. Why is it doing this to me? Well, I guess maybe. What does this do? Okay, so it does not... Yes, that is not the correct thing to do. That does not set it to 0. I think it makes it as 0, but this was used up here. I mean, what if I just... If I just do that instead of setting to 0 that way. Okay, so now we're back to being able to change that number, make it go positive or negative, which is cool. Oh, holy shit! We moved! We're moving so fast. Hold on. We got... Thrust worked. The thrust worked. It worked a little too well. I think I need this. There's like a way to like damp. I need it to like a damp here. Yeah. I don't know what these values even like mean. Okay, hold on. Let's see. So now we have damping. Which is maybe too... Now it... I don't... Man, why do I change nothing and then the experience is entirely different? What the heck? Why are you like this? Oh, that's because it's angular damp. Linear damp. 1. Save. Stop. Run. Bro, I literally just... something happened, and now it's not. And now it's not happening. You're killing me, Smalls. Okay, so the only thing I changed was the damp. If I turn the damp back... and now it doesn't do anything. I'm losing my mind. I'm losing my mind. You all saw it. You all saw it. I have it recorded. It's permanently in the VOD. I definitely moved, and I didn't change anything. I didn't change anything. God, I hate debugging shit. It's the worst part. It's the worst part. Okay, I'm gonna get rid of this print because I don't think it's helping. I think what I actually want is to print... Well, the thing is I'm getting like... I don't... It's the rotated... Maybe. So I was looking at the degree to rad. And then this would be the... Right. The issue I was having when I looked into the degree to rad, because I was thinking about that. The degree to rad converts an angle expressed in degrees to radians. Straightforward. The problem is that it takes a value in degrees, and I think I was looking at like the rotation, and 3.y. It's a float. Property is edited in degrees. Okay, so then is this rotation.y? That might be what we want. Rotation, degrees to radian, degrees to rads, rotation.y. That does not necessarily still explain why the flip this isn't doing anything. Because, like, my stupid-ass print down here is not even getting changed. Like, I'm not getting the +1 or the -1 anymore. But I definitely did that. It definitely did that. It did it the once. To your left, to your right. Date, apply force. Applies a positioned force to the body. A force is time dependent and meant to be applied every physics update. Position is the offset from the body origin in global coordinates. Is Y correct? I think this one might be Z. No, yeah, this Y. Well, it should be focused. So, like, I have code in here to make sure that, like, the mouse mode is captured when I click inside the game, which I presume leaves the game in focus, right? So it's like, this is now controlling the game, as far as I know. This was a useful little doodad that the tutorial that I was watching put forward. It was a good tutorial on camera. I just wish they had done more of, like, explaining the nuts and bolts. I feel a little more confident that this is correct now. I simply don't understand why it doesn't seem to be, like, changing based on inputs. Let's try print. If input increase throttle. Okay, so this is print increase throttle pressed. Print increase throttle not pressed. You know what? I don't need to. I can just say like W pressed, W not pressed. Let's just get this as like obvious as we can. A, no, D pressed. Whoops. A pressed. So like, can't be any more clear that we made it to. Yeah, it's not detecting the inputs. Okay, hold on. Let me... I just unplugged a peripheral that I have. Nope, that's not it. I thought maybe it was getting prioritized. We're not... What is... I don't understand what this apply force is doing. I don't know if we need this. I'm going to try to get rid of it and see what happens. Why? Just why? Like, it's not doing this. Project settings. Steer left, steer right. It runs like a physics process, but before the physics process. It's called during physics processing, allowing you to read and safely modify the simulation state for the object. By default, it is called before the standard force integration, but the custom integrator property allows you to disable the standard force integration and do fully custom force integration for a body. So it's alongside the physics process, but separate. I'm losing my mind. I don't understand. It just is not... Okay. Interesting idea. So you're saying, like, let's grab this guy, put this in the physics processor, and then we would have something like this, except now we're not applying this force. It's just If input is action pressed, then we print something. I think that's what you're suggesting, which I think is a pretty good idea. Except it just works now. It just works. The whole thing. Look, the motion works and everything. Now the motion is working. Now it's just, now you can see the left and right is also working. I'm losing my goddamn mind. Nothing. I didn't. Now we get two, also of note, we are getting 2 W pressed. Where did I store the function? The function is at the base level of the script outside of the physics process. I think that would make, I think that is a reasonable answer to your question, I think. You're right, I didn't change anything. Let's run it again. Do we get a different result? We do! We do get a different result. Why? Why do we get a different result? My man. It's like the keyboard doesn't always get detected by the game, which I don't know how. I don't know why. Let's try something. No, cancel that. Let's try switching the throttle to my mouse thumb button. I'm curious if okay, it also doesn't detect that. Yeah, okay. So it is not the hardware device, because we can see that it knows that my mouse exists. It's moving the camera. Using the thumb button, which is set to accelerate and would actually get triggered as a W pressed in the input or the output, also doesn't work. So it's not a hardware communication issue, because the mouse doesn't work despite the mouse working in the direction. It just doesn't do this for some reason. Godot 4.7. Debug not detecting key presses. Okay, let's look into is action pressed. Returns true if you are pressing the action event. If exact match is false, it ignores additional input modifiers for input event key and input event mouse button events in the direction for input event joypad motion events. Is anything pressed? Oh man, this one is a real doozy to my understanding. I don't seem to be changing anything. This is no longer a relevant comment. It is confusing. Why would this be happening? If action is action pressed. Like, this seems like it should be straightforward. I think those fireworks are getting picked up, so that's amusing. There's plenty of fireworks in the area. Okay. surely if I just put this into the physics process again, it's not going to just, like, work, right? Like, just because it's like, oh, now I'm supposed to check if this is a... Oh my god, it just does. Why? What? Also, the lateral torque thing isn't working. So, the forward thrust does seem to... And is it going to do it again? It does it again. And then as soon as I say comment that out... Oh, now we just have to prove me a liar. Now it's going to work every time. And if I delete this... Huh? Okay, well... Problem solved. Don't worry about it. Ooh, wait, hold on. Our debugger is complaining about something. What if I... Integrate forces. Apply force thrust rotated. The axis vector 3 must be normalized. Condition p-axis is normalized is true. What does that mean? Okay. Godot. 4.7. The axis vector 3 must be normalized. Okay, it's just a attach.normalize. Integrate forces, the axis vector, which I guess is this, dot normalize? Duh? Is dot normalized? Integrate forces. Or is it thrust dot Surely nothing will break this time. Surely.
We're creating a water shader and scratch
shut up, autoplay. I already did the water shader. Chill out. What could go wrong? Certainly nothing. I'm losing it. I'm Mick losing it over here. Of course. It doesn't detect it anymore. I don't understand. Restart Godot? Hey, can't hurt. Sure. I'm here for it. Can't hurt. Game Dev, Godot, Godot 4. If you switch your action to key presses. What do you mean by that? Key presses? Like here rather than the if input? Or something about this. Oops. Something about like the input map? Or is it the this should be key presses. Do I have an example of how that's different? If event, cuz like that's how I did these. Is camera motion, event is input, event, mouse motion, and input. Key pressed is action pressed is okay, so is key pressed. Oh, what the heck? Key. Okay, so is key pressed, and this would be key underscore W? Okay, so the idea would be then... I'm just going to set the 1, because then we can compare it to the other two. No. It also doesn't like that. Bruh. Bruh. Fireworks going crazy out there. Bruh. Okay, so that didn't change anything, which is still equally annoying. And then surely my weird-ass guaranteed fix is not going to actually fix this, right? If I just add the if check here again, it can't pop. Why is it, like, permanently pressed now? Why that behavior? What are all of these guys? Why did these stop? I thought my keyboard... I mean, I'm typing! I'm typing! The typing here works! Okay, well, that's interesting. This did something... Why? I don't understand why I keep getting, like, different behavior. I'm gonna... debug variable. Bar count equals 0. Plus count. Count plus equals count. Okay, this was strange. So I'm making an observation. Whoa, I didn't like that. String and int and operator plus. Did you not like my concatenation? Is that not a thing I can do so easily? Can I cast this like string count? Function string not found in base. What do you, str count? Is that better? Are we cool? Bro, my count doesn't work. Why are you like this? Okay, so why I was trying to do that. integrate forces function isn't going off. So what I noticed is that this is like more. Like we get a bunch of these, the print rotation direction, right? So we get a bunch of them at the beginning. And then if we hit W, we stop running the integrate forces at all. Notice how there's not this print. This print is not going off between each one of these W's, which you would expect, right? Because we do the integrate forces and then we do the physics process, or we're doing the physics process. And I don't understand why this doesn't seem to be occurring. It's called during physics processing, allowing you to read and safely modify the simulation state for the object. By default, it is called before the standard force integration. But the custom integrator properly allows you to disable the standard force integration and do fully custom force integration for a body. Do I need... So do I guess the question is, do I need to call integrate forces in here? I don't know why I would be getting different behavior, but like, do I need to actually integrate forces? Like, so like I set this up. Fireworks going crazy. Can't even see them out my window. I could if I opened it. Hold on. I can see it slightly. I can't tell if it was foggy earlier. I can't tell if it's foggy or smoky out there now. Damn. Man, okay. I am confused. I am glad that you are here to go through this with me. I'm pretty sure integrate forces runs once and then stops. That... So it's called during physics processing. And so like this example... Note that we are not setting the linear... like, this example has the integrate forces just, like, hanging out and does not indicate any... It doesn't... physics process, collision info, move and collide. Like, in the sample code that they're giving, it doesn't seem to sort of present anything. This is what's getting me so frustrated, because like this is the example that Godot has in its documentation, and it's just not complete. I mean, granted, this is for 2D and not 3D, but like the behavior overall should still be the same. When a rigid body goes to sleep... Oh, wait. There's a note. When a rigid body goes to sleep, the integrate forces function will not be called. To override this behavior, it will need to keep the body awake by creating a collision, applying a force to it, or by disabling the can sleep property. Be aware that this can have a negative effect on performance. Okay, so it might just be going to sleep because it's not detecting any changes in physics. But that really means the player should not be able to sleep, which... Where would that be? Physics, interpolation... Camera movement, damping in the linear sense, axis lock. Oh my god, that's why. That was something that I had done because of a different tutorial. Tutorials, man, they get your ass every time. Freaking angular locks, that's gonna cause some problems. Okay, hold on. Oh my god! Problem solved. It's too much. It's too much torque. It's too much torque. It was a lot of torque, okay? It was a lot of torque. It's a lot of torque. Let's relax the torque. Don't worry. It's broke again. It's broke again. Why are you like this? The mystery persists. Yeah, what the... Okay, I do think I need to figure out how to turn off the sleep. Where is the sleep? Filter properties, sleep. Can sleep. No. Cease your sleep. Never. Absolutely not. Do not sleep. It turns. It turns the other way. It goes backwards. I still need to fix that. Hold on. Okay, it was the sleep. I think it was the sleep. Boy, that went to sleep real damn quick. So this should be positive, actually. And then the other piece that we need is, I believe it would be damping. That would bring it to a stop, right? Oh my god. I have made progress. Interestingly, also, the left and right is incorrect. That's very strange to me, I'm realizing. So this should be negative. This should be positive. I don't know why. What's the game we're trying to make right now? A box that moves. Like, my goals are low. In long term, I want to make something similarly inspired by the old game Warship Gunner 2. You know, ships on water, shooting things, arcade style, whatnot. That's where we're going. If you want to get really long-term dream, I'd love to sort of bring in a little bit of, sort of like Dredge vibes, right? Where now you're working with, like, battleships and, you know, Cthulhian nightmare horrors from the depths, right? Like battleships versus horrors. That would be something I would love to get to. That is so far down the roadmap. I don't even want to look at it. I don't want to look at it. It will make me depressed and stressed. We're not looking at that. We do not see. We do not perceive. Because first and foremost, we're getting a box to move. We got a box. The box moves. The box moves forward. The box comes to a stop. This is incredible progress. I know this was the stupidest, simplest shit to accomplish, but like, damn, man, I'm just glad that I actually did. Oh, but wait, we have definitely done something wrong. Okay, this is what I needed to know, actually. So, the turning is doing what I expect. The forward is only ever moving forward. We're not moving in the direction of where the box is facing. So that's the thing we need to resolve. Is I need this apply force to be correctly in the direction. And the simplest thing to check on that front is if we're grabbing the right rotation. And I'm wondering if it should be rotation.z. Because these were Hello, Krabby Crafters. Welcome. Welcome to the shit show. Although, to be fair, we have dramatically reduced the shittiness of the show just recently. Things are improving. Progress is being made. Ah, it was Z. Hey, no, we're not. We're still moving in the one direction. Why is it that only moves one direction? So this is just not... This is not rotating. I mean, I guess I should try the last one. Like, make sure that that is what we need. Or rather, that is not what we need. So, we're moving forward. We turn to the right. And then we hit forward. And we continue moving in just the universal fashion that direction. So, I really should, hold on, can I? Well, yeah, that's where we're at. We are real starting from the ground up. Can I add texture? How do I add a texture to this mesh instance? No, not damp. You get out of here. That's why. Mesh, visibility? Do I really have to figure out? I gotta figure out how to add a damn texture to a mesh instance. What is this? So we add a texture button, texture rect? No, that's a control. Not a texture. What about a UV? Node 3D, GPU particles, attractor field. That's a little excessive. It is a game development thing, but if you are looking for someone who knows what the hell they're doing, you are unfortunately in the wrong place, because we are making something from scratch, but I am also learning from scratch. So We're moving slow. As you can tell, surface material override. Standard material. Okay, yes, that's what I need. Standard material 3D. Oh, it's even brighter than it was before. Honestly, this is perfect. I just want you to be like a different color that approximates water. Lovely. Just so I can see my damn box that moves. Okay. I know we still need to get some like actual grid lines on this to be useful. Okay, back to our script. So this is not getting us the direction that we want. Apply force. Applies a positioned force to the body. A force is time dependent and meant to be applied every physics update. Position is the offset from the body origin in global coordinates. Force, vector 3. Apply force. And then thrust dot rotated. So this is using this thrust. So it's not really rotating it, is it? Okay, so Y is yaw. Y is what we want, which makes sense because these are rotation of this node as Euler angles in radians and in parent space relative to the parent node. Interesting. Okay. Parent node. What in this case is the parent node? Is that universal? Because it is the player, like, is this scene the parent node or is the game the parent node? Because that would explain relative to the parent node. This value is obtained. You know what? Okay, hold on. This could also help. Print. We now don't need this anymore. So let's print. Let's grab this guy and print this. We also don't need to print our rotation direction. That is doing a thing now. We don't need to see these. We can undebug. Now, we can rotate. Yes. Precisely as I thought might be happening. So we're not... This isn't changing. That's consistent. It's not changing at all. We don't need this. We figured that shit out. That's not changing. This is just constant. Or this whole thrust dot rotated. So that's not doing what we want it to. Is it like, if we just put thrust in here, is it just going to work because I just want it to like apply force forward. No, it's not going to do that. Which, honestly, that's fine. I at least have not lost my mind. Okay, so that doesn't do the thing. This doesn't seem to be doing anything in it either. You mentioned a local rotation or global to local. Just dot local? How do I get local rotation? Let me see the search docs. Local rotation. Local rotation. This type of movement is sometimes called asteroid style because it resembles how that classic... Yeah. I mean, that's where we're... It is essentially what we're trying to do, but this is going to be in 2D and also is a character body. Click and move. So we're just on varieties of... What about 3D? Hold on. What was that? Physics and movement. What about the physics and movement here? These assholes. How dare they? Just not worried about the 3D movement, huh? These jerks. Okay, so we need to apply a force. I mean, it's weird because, this should, if it's getting it relative to the parent node, it should be getting it relative to the, global directions. Why is it not changing? Rotation.normal. What does this do? Returns the result of scaling the vector to unit length, equivalent to v over v.length. Is normalized. This function may return incorrect values if the input vector length is near 0. The order of each consecutive rotation can be changed with rotation order. So I think this should be rotation.y for one. Let's just... Yeah, so thrust, and so the rotated returns the result of rotating this vector around a given axis by angle in radians. The axis must be a normalized vector. Yeah, okay, so... I would think that this should work. Print, let's just print rotation.normalized. What do we get out of that? Oh. Hold on. Yeah, right? I don't want to print this here. I want to print this outside of the if statements. So that it's every time. There was like a moment where I saw it was something relevant. No, it was -0, -1, 0. It was just a different shape. I noticed that. Okay, so it's only ever returning zeros, ones, and negatives. Why? Why is it doing that? Well, Well, normalization should put it between 0 and 1, right? Returns the result of scaling the vector to unit length, equivalent to v over v dot length. Right? Because, like, it shouldn't be... There should be ranges between -1 to 1, I think. Is... Because that I think should be the bounds. But it's not giving me anything aside from those 1 values, which is not helpful. Well, and we could also just take this off and see if we get something different. We could literally just print rotation. The normalized is doing something weird. So the rotation is working. We can see it being the range. It is the Y value that is changing. The rotation goes around and it comes back. Great. So that works. Okay, rotation normalized. Turns the result of scaling the vector to unit length. V dot length. May return incorrect values. Why? The problem is that it complained when I tried to do that. When I just sent rotation, it said that it expects it to be... It expected it to be normalized. I thought. Although now it seems fine. Notably, however, it's still not applying the thrust in any direction aside from the 1. Why not? Print rotation. Let's also print degree to rad rotation dot y. It's entirely possible this is just straight up wrong as shit, actually. Okay, so yes. The issue, I think, with this is this and this is exactly the same information. This is just the same information, but in radians. So this is not what we need. Rotated. What is that second value supposed to be? Turns a result of rotating this vector around a given axis by angle. Oh my god. I think I understand. I don't know why it's like this. This is correct. This, I think we just want to be... Like, is this 0? Like, we need the... How do we... How... I'm actually confused. 1, 0... Yeah, that's exactly what I think maybe it's supposed to be. No, that's not exactly what it's supposed to be. It is giving us exactly the same result as it was previously, though. So it's obvious that this first section is just entirely stupid. Can we just do like vector3 dot y? Dot axis dot y? Okay, hold on. Let's take a look at vector3. Structures, methods, angle 2, bounce, ceiling, clamp, cross, cubic interpolate, direction 2. Direction 2 returns the normalized vector pointing from this vector to 2. This is equivalent to using b minus a dot normalized. Floor inverse is length squared, max min, move toward outer rotated. That's the one we're working with. Yes, I am not trying to assign a velocity. We are trying to apply a force to the rigid body. The issue is that our issue is that we're trying to apply the force in the direction that would be the front-facing portion of our moving box. And I'm struggling to decipher how to tell it what that forward is. We have rotation. We got rotation, which is actually a pretty significant step today. As small a step as that may be, it is actually significant. The issue is that I don't understand how to tell it where forward is. Like, if we just normalize 0, does that do anything for us? We can rotate, and then we are still applying... So I can see that we see the rotation information. I'm seeing it in the output. We have rotation. We know that the rotation is happening. We got it. Oh, fireworks like right outside. Neat. How do we... Yeah, how do we get this? Okay, let's look at this again. Rotate it. Returns the result of rotating this vector around a given axis by angle. So we're giving them the angle in radians. That's a thing that we are providing. See also global scope dot degree to radian. You could use vector 3 dot up down forward. Interesting. If it's a scene that you're adding to the main, then you need to assign it to the axis. Okay, so I see. Okay, so maybe this is what I need. This would be vector 3 dot up dot normalized. It has to be normalized. No, okay. Dot forward dot normalized. Is that meaningful? It does not appear to be meaningful. Is there something wrong with the way that I'm communicating this? Because this number is changing as I expect it to. So this is the correct degrees difference. But what is this global scope? degrees to radians. Converts an angle expressed in degrees to radians. Right, yes, that's fine. That's not meaningful. That's just a method to, which is what I'm doing here. Degrees to radian rotation.y. That's just doing math for me. Rotated just rotates the axis you give it by degrees. So if you do v3100, hey Kappa. I'm not actually sure how she's doing. Generally, she was doing okay, but when we went to sit outside yesterday when there were some fireworks going off, and she did not care for that. And she ran back in. So I don't know how she's doing now today with similar sounds, but outside. We did get medication for her to help her chill. So I don't know if the wife has given her that to help her relax through, but... Okay, what did you read, Kiri? You give... Basically just rotates the axis you give it by degrees. So if you do vector3 dot rotated vector3010 degrees to radians 180, give v3 -100. Right. And that, I think, makes sense, because we are creating the vector 3 thrust here, which we have 5. So, like, yeah. Yeah. Because this moves us in the right plane. Rotation.y is already calculated in radians. Wait, is it? I thought I looked it up and I was pretty sure it said rotation of this node in radians and in parent space. You are correct. I thought it was yelling at me about giving it something in degrees and it needed it in radians. Okay, well, that helps. Do vector 3 up. Okay, let's give it a try. Vector 3 dot up. This is a real team effort here, which I do appreciate. The moment of truth. Where are we going? Oh my god, it worked. There were errors, and we fixed them. It's a miracle. Look at us scooting around. Let's go. Oh my god, we're scooting around. This is... Well, that is in fact what I hope to accomplish today. So, fan-freaking-tastic. Okay. We can move. I still hate the camera setup, but that's my own doing. So, you know. What are you going to do about it? I think I have this... It is inverted. That's part of my problem. Hold on, let me just fix that. Camera... Camera input direction. Rotator rotation, pivot rotation. Sensitivity, whatever, I'll worry about it. Yeah, we got there eventually. Yeah, so I think obvious mistakes were that I re-normalized this, which up was, I think, already normalized. So that was obviously a mistake. And the conversion of this from radians to fake radians. Whatever the hell that was. I don't know. not a real value. Okay. Damn, now I'm like... I'm not even sure what the next step is. Obviously, all of that needs fine-tuning. So I guess the next step would be... I need to... make a cannon is the next step. We need a cannon. We need a way to shoot the cannon. And then we need things to interact with the cannon, to be hit by the cannon. That's the next step in getting what I would consider, what I had made up as the, like, absolute base. Oh, did it not save? Oh, it did. It's just over here now. So, milestone 1, can move camera, can shoot cannon. We have some open space, which ocean might be a little bit generous. I have a water shader. I made a water shader, and by made I mean I followed a tutorial. We have static targets, and those static targets can be impacted and die. That's milestone 1, the most baseline of an operational game. We'll generously call it a game. It's a piece of software that can be interacted with. That's where we're at. Yes, I do have... So, I have a water thing that I did follow. It was working better before. It had waves in it, and I messed it up by following another tutorial. I don't know how the vector part of this got hosed somehow. Hold on. Use a packed scene with a marker 3D and instantiate a rigid body and reparent it to an export variable set to your main. That's a lot of words. I have the packed scene, the marker 3D. What is the marker 3D that you are referring to? Oh, I closed this. Godot documentation. Godot docs. Is it marker 3D? Is that, are you describing a cannon? Is that what we're doing? Generic 3D position hint for editing. I also hope that I won't need to reinvent the physics logic. I am hoping that that can simply be done via values, right? Like, just a straightforward manipulation of, you know, mass and speed and, you know, stuff like that. And the gravity will just do the work to, like, land it. The more complicated piece that I am not looking forward to down the line, unless for some reason it's easier than I expect, the challenge will be that part of the, like, I intend for this to be more arcadey and not, like, hyper-simulationist that makes it very difficult to land, like, long shots. So the goal will be that eventually you will be... That's a water you could mess up. It was working. I had it working, and then I made some changes. I know that I can get it working again, like even just following the tutorial again and making some changes to like the script that, or the shader that was, because I do have like I still have the shader in here, because I think the fundamental issue is that the last thing I had done was changing a name of a variable. So I have time scale, wave time. Wave time, time scale. Is this time? What is this time? Because this is the sort of regular waves, and then I had the void vertex. Model matrix, vertex, wave. Yeah, it's something in this. It's the vertex part that I got messed up. Anyway, with the cannons, the goal eventually will be essentially that you could target something and then it would it would sort of back up the calculation so that it finds the values that would give it the likely chance to hit based on the current direction, the current vector of target movement and what arc was necessary to get the cannon fire into where that current ship would be moving to, with some variance based on dispersion. That eventually is what we'll want. Honestly, I actually don't know if I have it in me to try to start working on a cannon right now. I think this is a little bit shorter than my typical streams. Please explain again. Was what I was saying? Or what Roy was saying? Oh, you literally have Godot in your name. So the piece of the cannon that I think will be challenging, and maybe it won't be, I don't know. So the simple way that you would do a cannon, right, is you aim somewhere and it just fires the cannon in the direction you're aiming. But what I want it to be is more arcadey, so that you don't have to do the whole World of Warships style of very fine tuning of you're aiming it here so that the arc will land it where you're trying to get it, right? My goal would be that you would sort of be aiming at a target, and you can see the target and you know that that's your current target, and then the calculation would be done on the back end of based on the direction the ship is going, since you're targeting that ship, the cannon needs to fire it would do a little bit of adjusting so that it's going to land where the ship will be based on its current lit vector. Because, long shots have a good chunk of lead time before they land when you're working with long-range naval fire. And so it's you would target a ship, you would fire, and there would be some degree of adjustment automatically to land it where the ship will be based on its current vector when fired, with some variance based on dispersion. So some scatter. Because if you're firing 4 guns at once, you'll have a lot of projectiles going and you want them to disperse to some extent, but you want it shot well, eventually, ideally, missiles will also be an option. Cannons are the first weapon. Cannons will only be the first weapon. And quite frankly, it's entirely possible that some iteration of the game exists that is only cannons. But eventually, more interesting things will be implemented. And so that's getting that sort of arcade-y feel will be some of the challenge for sure. But yeah, it's a little shorter stream than I normally do, but trying to
pivot and start fresh on a whole new, like, challenge of cannons, I think is a little bit much for me today, especially with freaking fireworks going off everywhere. We need to go check on our dog, make sure she's doing okay. Honestly, I feel well accomplished. Cannons, assign a velocity to a rigid body, and lerp the Y. Freaking lerp, man. I have heard of lerp, and I've seen lerp as a thing that can be done in the thing that runs this model, which is an application called visualdon, and I have never dabbled with what the hell lerp is. It's like merging, like it's moving from one position to another or something. So it's like, that makes sense. I'm just going to tackle it later. I also just realized, Roy, you have literally Godot in your name. So it's like, that would make sense why you know much more about this. That certainly would do. Yeah. I think that is all of that my brain can take for today. It was progress, though. It's slow progress, but quite frankly, it's more accomplished than I have in quite some time, above and beyond just, you know, dreaming and thinking and wishing for something to happen, right? Like, this whole sort of experiment for me is shifting my Saturday streams each week to being, like, trying to work in Godot to do something, just because I have found that I really need a habit. Like, I need to form a habit, or else I'm just not going to, like, be able to focus enough or get the will to come back and keep working on something, like, when it's ad hoc. Like, ad hoc just doesn't do it. I have too much stuff that I'm doing in my day-to-day work. I've got other streams that I'm trying to accomplish. I can't just, like, hope that I have enough persistence to just, oh yeah, I'll just make it happen. Blah, blah. It's just not gonna happen. So that's why every Saturday at the moment I'm trying to make my Godot streams, and hopefully they will only be slow slogs for a shorter period of time, while I'm trying to sort of, like, just shore up my baseline understanding of, like, how do I get these things to interact. Like, once I have things functioning at a bare bones sense, hopefully we'll actually get to, like, game design, and we can actually be doing interesting things and making meaningful choices to get somewhere of, like, making a thing. But that does take time. You just have to learn things. But I think that will be it for today. Thank you so much for hanging out, Kiri, Roy, and then who else was there? There's Coral Snorkel. Thanks all for being here and hanging out. Some of my regulars were here earlier too. Kappa Scobolts as well earlier. Appreciate you stopping in for a Saturday night. If you're interested, I'll be streaming my normal game streams. Next one will be Tuesday, same time. And I'm currently, what am I going to finish up? Oh, yes, I should be finishing up Starship Troopers Ultimate Bug War, which, fun game. Would encourage if anybody likes boomer shooters. But that's when I'll be back next Tuesday. And then if you're more interested in the game dev, I will be back next Saturday. So thanks very much. Have a good night. Enjoy your weekend. Happy 4th of July to anybody who cares or is in a place to care. But yeah, hopefully I'll see you next time. All right. Bye, all.